kick this off. Hey everyone, welcome to the Fundamental Escape podcast, random car park edition with Will Fleming from My Kiwi Life. How's it going, Will?
What's up, dude? Hello to your listeners. You'll find Will, who's just come off a conference conversation, sitting up there in front of people, nervous, train wreck, but got through it. So full of endorphins. Happy to be talking with you, Mark.
Absolutely. Now, it's been hard to get you on this podcast. I have to catch you in a car park. It's a bit random, but you did well. I have to say to the listeners, you did a great job. You coined the term "Don't Bill Cosby me." Do you want to talk about that for a minute or so?
I think that might be a T-shirt one day. Listen, this idea that people are tricking us, this idea, not on Illuminati level, but like this idea that people have one side of them that, that's the side they project. Now when we all find out that they're not that person, it rocks us for many reasons. One reason is this idea of, well, look man, I based my learning on you. I saw how you interacted socially, and now I've got to turn around and say that's all BS. It's challenging for me. So I'm
sorry, I have to jump in here. I have to say, I have been Bill Cosby'd by Ricky Gervais, and I use this excuse to talk about this at any possible time. But as people who listen to some of my episodes know, I got blocked on Twitter by Ricky Gervais. Now I know. I'll tell you the whole story in detail. I worshipped him. I thought he was amazing. I spent so much money. The reason I got into podcasting was the Ricky Gervais show, right? The reason, I'll tell you the reason, I'll say it again for the people who've heard it. So I sent him a tweet, because he goes into 3 different modes on Twitter, right? So he goes into here's my DVDs, buy my shit. And then he goes into save the animals, and then he goes into belligerent atheism. So it's his 3 Twitter modes. So he sent out this tweet, and he says, he's basically mocking fundamental Christians. And he says, a moose lives in my wardrobe, and if you don't believe me, you're hateful and a bigot. And I was like, okay, first of all, that's not even funny. That's just awkward and weird. And I'm like, that you wrote The Office, whatever. So I sent him a tweet, and I said, Ricky Gervais, Richard Dawkins' tweets are funnier than yours right now. Please address this. And he blocked me for that. It was amazing. So I've been Bill Cosby'd by Ricky Gervais. But to make the serious point, I think it is interesting because we do have these expectations of you. Because seriously, I am quite distraught by this because I'm like, you are this person that comes across as bulletproof to me. You get up at the Golden Globes and you eviscerate these celebrities. I'm like, you are a thin-skinned atheist, as Milo Yiannopoulos would say. It's just so easily wound up, and you take yourself entirely too seriously. So let's talk about My Kiwi Life for a second. So do you want to give the listeners an introduction to who you are, why you do what you do? Why did you start a podcast?
Yeah, that's a very good point. So Will Fleming is my name. My day job is a studio director. And it's a bit mind-numbing because it's the corporate world of you just got to get stuff done. I think I've always had an interest in being a bit creative, an interest in what's it all about, and I still haven't answered those questions. But this whole idea of My Kiwi Life is my journey. It's this idea of getting guests in who I think from afar have kind of nailed their lives. They've gone through their hard stuff. They're now reaping their rewards from that, and so I want to know what the hard stuff they went through. Then I can project that on my life, on others' lives, and we can all go forward together,
Yeah, absolutely. You're actually reminding me, there's a Kiwi, you might actually know him, I don't know, what's Johnny Barker, he's a New Zealander, right? Do you know him? Okay, I met him once when I was a little bit tipsy in Auckland City. But he was in Shortland Street, and he's a musician, and he's great, he's a great guy. I saw him interviewed on this, a kids' afternoon TV show one time, a couple of years ago, and they had this kind of meme thing they put on, they're like, Johnny Barker, winning at life, And I was like, the heck, they kind of, I think that's more about the other person than anything else, right? And I think I think there's truth to what you're saying. People do well in their lives and they make, they get success out of the hard work they put in and things like that, which is what I think you're alluding to. But it's all a little bit over the top. It's not really, actually, I had a guy, Peter Rollins, on my podcast. He's a philosopher, and he often quotes Oscar Wilde, who says, there's only one thing worse than not getting what you want, and it's getting what you want, right? It's you finally get the money, you finally get the girl, whatever it is, and it's just this is just rubbish. This is not what I imagined. So you seem to be on this kind of journey of trying to figure out what your life is all about. What sort of questions do you ask yourself to sort of figure out where you're at from time to time?
Yeah, so for me, I try and break it down to the things that connect us as humans, you know? This might be a bit crass, but whatever. So we all like eating, you know, and that makes sense. We eat, what's the purpose of it? To get energy so we can move around and stuff, right? We like sex. What's the reason for that? So, you know, if you're lucky enough to have sex, the reason is we like it is so that we can have children and keep the human race going. Those are all things that make sense to me. So if you take everything out of the way, what are some other things in life that make sense, you know? Talking's one of them. Being able to express with someone your ideas is one of them. And so that's how I prep myself. When I go into a conversation with someone, I'm like, well, what are the things that seem easy for you to do, that are good for you, that I can pick up on, that others can pick up on? That might be things like meditation. That might be things like, you know, I had one guest, Jimmy Hunt, who just said, look, on your way home, shut up for a little while. Wind the window down and just feel the wind.
I have to say, I love the fact that on a podcast he basically said stop listening to podcasts. And I had Jimmy on my podcast as well, shameless plug, but he was amazing, and he's actually got his water slide thing today. Actually, it's funny. I contemplated jumping this and going to that, but no, yeah, Jimmy Hunt is amazing. He actually really inspired me. He did a TED talk in Auckland here, and he said this line that just really floored me, where he says, human beings are inherently good and they want to help each other. And I was like, what in the like, because I grew up religious, as people know. I grew up in this world that says, no, you're kind of a piece of shit and you're just lucky that Jesus came to save you, sort of a deal. And he comes along and says, no, he speaks to this humanity and this dignity in all of us. And I think you resonate with that as well. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, I definitely think so. So the religious element of it, I don't know where I stand on that. You know, this is a journey for everyone that's going through this. I just try and keep it simple. I think that being good to people makes us feel good. It ticks the right parts of our brains. But there must be something in it that says, get what you need, be a bit greedy. You know, so I think we're channeling that wrong, and culture and society is kind of battling from that. I don't want to get too kind of down and dirty with it, but you know, it always goes back to this idea of like, what are these people saying, and how can I use that in my life, and acknowledging that there's two sides of us. There's two sides to that Jimmy. The side he showed me on my podcast with him is that Jimmy in the TED Talk is old Jimmy. Jimmy's come forward from that point. He's kind of agreeing. He agrees with all what Jimmy says then, but he's put some of these things he's learned into practice, you know, like he told me about this idea of, why do ideas come when you're having a shower? It's because you're shutting up for a second. And if you think about us, we're always trying to fill ourselves with things to take our mind off it. If it's social, if it's movies, if it's music, it doesn't give us a chance to do what we're built to do, to process, to think, to understand.
Yeah, it's really random to throw this out, but there's actually a Bible verse that just popped into my head, which ties into exactly what you said, which basically says, forgetting those things which are behind me, and pressing on to take hold of, you know, it says that, you know, it talks about Jesus, blah, blah, blah. But, you know, it is that thing in what you said about Jimmy, sort of leaving those things behind and saying, and I think as human beings, we do tend to be quite nostalgic, like, oh, back in the day, and we sort of, back in the heyday and this and that. And I think what you said was interesting about the sort of speaking to the negative sides of humanity and our selfishness and stuff. And I've heard this quote that says essentially this idea that words create worlds. And I think that ties in so much with podcasting because it's all about words, right? And I think I ponder, I imagine, you know, this idea that maybe we're the ones that are telling the story. Like maybe this speaking to this idea of humans being greedy and selfish is creating the greed and selfishness, right?
Or we're using things that are built in us, like the need for food, like the need for love, this idea that we're projecting. Maybe that was useful when you had to plant a crop of potatoes, but it's not useful now. But we're still stuck with those old things because we don't need food the same way anymore. We can go to the shop and buy it. We've still got these things that we're looking to project, so we're just confusing ourselves to think we need to project in ways of, I'm going to make heaps of money one day. But those things, I think, my sense is they were inbuilt in us, you know, whether it come from God or evolution or whatever your situation is, they're inbuilt in us so that we can use that. I think we're just going through a transitional phase of how to use that. Maybe that's where podcasting for me helps us navigate through this weird time. Mark, I pitch you an idea.
Awesome.
We pick this podcast up soon. We go back up. We're at the...
I was about to wrap up.
Or it's just wrapping up this...
Pause.
Yeah. and maybe
Part 1.
there we go. There we go. We're going. Just so folks know, we're at a convention today. It's the Asia Pacific Podcast Conference, and we're talking podcasting all day. Now there's a feed going on. I said I like to eat. Let's go do some eating.
Yeah, sounds good.
And then we'll pick this up, eh?
Awesome. Well, stay tuned, everyone. We'll finish this off soon. Cool. Let's kick this off. Hey, everyone. Welcome to the Fundamental Escape Podcast.